If you're ready, we are ready. Welcome on stage, Stephanie Cox, the founder of Chancenreich. Hello, Stephanie. and she arrived like literally a minute ago.
Yeah,
so
just checking if the mic is working.
Is the microphone working?
The mic is working. Can you hear me? Yeah, you can.
Can you?
Hey.
Stage is yours. Hi there.
Nice to see you.
Haven't seen you in ages. We always meet on stages, don't we?
Happens.
It happens all the time.
Thanks for the introduction.
Enjoy yourself. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me or is the mic off? Off, okay. Can somebody... Oh, I'm here. Great. Good. I'm happy to be here. My name is Stephanie Cox. I'm the initiator from Chancenreich. We're going to get into that in a second. But first of all, I want to, because we have an hour now, there's going to be a lot of input. We're going to have 2 more people joining me on stage, so it's going to be interactive in a way. But first of all, I'm actually really interested from my side to ask you some questions. And I'm going to start off with everyone. I would like everyone to get up. Stand up, please. Stand up. Okay, I would like you to look around. Is there someone you don't know? Shake hands with someone you don't know. You have to like walk around if you know too many people around you. Okay, so you have one person you don't know. Keep this person in mind. Okay, you can sit down again. You can sit down again. Okay, so what's going to happen right now is I would like you to quickly exchange with the person you just shook hands with what, in your opinion, is the biggest challenge we have globally. What is the biggest challenge you think we have globally? 1, 2, 3. Please exchange with this person. What do you think is the biggest challenge you think we have globally? You have to look for a person. You're on your own. I'm sorry for you. Okay. So this is about impactful entrepreneurship. Let's see what you've... Okay, what do you think is the biggest challenge? Well, we're going to wait for a second. 3, 2, 1. Okay, stop, please. Okay, let's see. What do you see as the biggest challenge?
I'm not prepared for this. I don't know. Unsecurity or something?
Okay, unsecurity came from this side. Unsecurity. Anyone else? Okay, we have the biggest challenge over here. Okay, what's the biggest challenge in your opinion? People. What, in what sense people? Just people in general. Humans. Okay, humans. Can you switch on? Okay, thank you. Okay, is there anyone? Okay, thank you. Good.
If it's red, it's red.
Okay. Okay, anyone else in the back? I can see this is the worst thing to do if you don't want to get... What do you think is the biggest challenge?
Communication.
Communication? Okay, so if communication, humans, and insecurity. Good. So we're always talking about the global scale. Let's take a step back and talk about the country we all, some of us know best, some of us have lived in for years, some of you maybe just moved here or just visiting. It's this little guitar in the middle of Europe. I'm originally Australian, so I get that a lot. They're like, oh, Australia, Austria, they mix us up. So let's talk about Austria right now. What do you think is the biggest challenge we have in Austria right now? What's in your... Okay, I can see already someone is like fainting over here. I'm going to ask you first. So I'm going to ask you in a second. Let's get... For the other ones, you have 30 seconds. Quickly, and a second question. Do you know someone who is tackling these challenges? Have you heard of an entrepreneur? Are you an entrepreneur yourself who he or she is trying to tackling these challenges you are seeing here in Austria? So number 1, which challenges you see in Austria? And number 2, do you know someone who's actually tackling these challenges? Ready, set, go. 3, 2, 1. We're going to get over to talk a little bit about the challenges in a second. Now it's still your turn. Okay, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to ask the lady over here who nearly fainted in the beginning. So what are the biggest challenges you see? And do you know someone who's actually tackling them?
Well, I think the right-wing movement in Austria and closing borders and shutting down and thinking rather small, not big.
Okay, you're saying fences, not thinking small, not big. Anyone else? Thank you for that input. Let's see the ladies over here. Do you have something? No?
Yeah, the separation of the political parties.
Okay, you're saying so politics. Okay, in this room, a lot of people think of separation of politics, fences. Okay, anyone else? Something else than politics? This is an interesting point. We're going to come to that later.
I think the main difficulty is to think big, because the most Austrians are a little bit scared about thinking big out of the borders. See Germany, see Switzerland and other countries. It's what the main speaker before also said.
Yeah. So not thinking big.
Yeah.
And not thinking beyond borders. Okay, one more comment and then we're going to continue.
I think also very important is tackling climate change. So either it's just in Austria or generally all over the world. I think that is a big problem
Okay.
that we have to tackle.
Okay, thank you. So climate change, thinking not big enough, politics, borders, and separation of parties. I'm with you. Okay, I'm totally with you that we have a few challenges here, and that's also the reason actually why I'm here. I actually moved recently to Berlin. I travel a lot work-wise. I'm going to tell you in a second what I'm actually doing. But before that, one of the biggest challenges I see is the refugee crisis. What we were talking about, politics, borders, and so on. And talking about that, but in every crisis, there's an opportunity and a chance. And that's actually the project we're going to introduce you to in a second. There's already the word in it, chance, and Austria, Chancenreich, Österreich. And we're going to tell you in a second why we came up with this project and why we're doing that. If you look at the refugee situation, 900,000 people crossed Austria last year. 900,000. How many people really applied for asylum in Austria? Do you know? Oh, about one, okay. 90,000, yeah. So from these 900,000, 90,000 actually applied for asylum in Austria. So it's actually a little amount compared to Germany, because they all wanted to go to Germany, but still we're talking about a crisis, we're still talking about people are scared, and we still have every week around 1,000 asylum seekers applying for asylum here in Austria. So I'm going to move on right now because I want to tell you about Chancenreich, and I would like to have someone on stage here because, as you know, when you start something, if you're lucky, you're not on your own. You have a person beside you or a group of people, and I was lucky. I have Leo on my side. I had Leo on my side for the project itself, and so. You have to wait to switch on, you have to press the button. Is it working? No? Okay, we need technology in a second.
Hello?
Okay.
There we go. Hey, how's it going, everyone? Hey. Hey. So many nice faces to see. Yeah, I'm Leo. I started a company called Buffer. Anyone in the room have ever heard about Buffer? Show of hands. Woo! That's awesome.
I have a picture here.
About 10%. Cool. And yeah, this is us in Hawaii. We are about 100 people. We're doing about $10 million in annual revenue. And we build a social media management software. So we help you to schedule, manage, and post and analyze your social media accounts. That's Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and so forth. And yeah, I've been doing this for the last 5 years. Started the company in San Francisco. We raised about $4 million from Silicon Valley investors. And yeah, so that's my main gig. That's what I do most of the time in my day. And I was really excited to actually do something back in Austria with Steffi. And that's how we came up with the idea for Chancenreich. And yeah, I'm really excited to do something besides starting businesses and working on Buffer. And yeah.
Well, I'm going to get you back in a second what Chancenreich is, because we're going to tell you the process. Here it's also about if you see an issue, if you see a challenge, how to start. And we're going to tell you our story in a second. So who am I? Oh, this is me, 2011. That's where the startup scene here in Austria got actually riding. You see here Andy Chas from Pioneers. This is in the old days. Fredrik from Sugar or Moritz from CodeShip. So these are the old people. So 2011, we had a similar conference and event like this. We called it Start Europe. It turned into Pioneers Festival. So that's where I started off. Right now, I consult startups in a rapid growth phase. So I spend time, for example, with CodeShip on boats and consult them on further developments, how to hire, who to hire, where to go in their next development steps. So I have customers like What to Do, Anyline, Durchblicke in the Austrian market. But I also work with lawyers, I work with organizations, so I do organizational development as a consultant. And if I'm not doing that, I'm traveling around the world and actually moderating events. So you see me either like on the left-hand side or on the right-hand side on stages, especially in the Middle East in the last year. So how did we get going? So this is us. How do we start Chancenreich? So what happened was, on December the 27th, 2015, Leo and me were in Austria. So that was the point. For Christmas, we come back, we spend time with our families. So you can hear already with Leo's accent, he has a little bit of an American twang. That's because he has lived in the US for a while. And he actually came right from San Diego. Was it San Diego?
Yep, San Diego, yeah.
San Diego, and we said, okay, let's go for coffee and just exchange. And what happened then was that we said, okay, there's a lot going on in our own country, in Austria, and we weren't really able to support until then. So we had a lot of refugees going through Austria, a lot of people really supporting on the ground, but we weren't able because we weren't here to really support on the ground. So we said, instead of a coffee, let's go to the Lindengasse, and you can see us. We're not a pop group or something like that. We were playing games with kids in the Lindengasse. It's like a center where the refugees, it's like a first docking center for refugees. So what happened there was, we were shocked, on the one hand, because that was in December already, that there's still so many people coming in, but we were amazed about what they were talking about. We had language barriers with them. We couldn't really communicate with them. But still, you could see the kids, they were hanging us, they were trying to communicate with us. There were language signs, and we had translators telling us about what they wanted to tell us. And a lot of times they were telling us about their dreams. They were telling us about what work they want to find here. They were telling us about their crazy times they left behind and the hope they have here. And this really, really struck us. And what happened then was, I moved back to Berlin a day after, actually went right to the airport after this picture, and Leo was still here for a couple of days, went to San Diego, I went to Berlin, and we Skyped in January and said, this is just crazy. We can't just leave Austria and see that there's crazy things happening, and we could actually have an impact and do something, but we're just leaving it behind and telling politics that they should take the lead. So that's where we jumped in, and then we said, okay, what can we do? So what happened? We came back from Berlin and San Diego, and we met in Austria. And what happened then was actually, I would like Leo to give an introduction with. So what we did then was we used something Leo really uses a lot in his startup buffer. We used the lean approach because we really wanted to know where the pain points, where can we really have a sustainable impact. And we didn't just want to go into centers and give out food. That's really important as well, yes. But we said, how can we use our entrepreneurial skills, our network, our power in this issue right now to have a sustainable impact? Leo, what did we do?
Yeah, so in short, we basically said, what we really know is how to start companies and how to build companies. So how can we actually start a project to help refugees and think about it in the same way that we would if we were to start a company. So a big impact on my life is a book called The Lean Startup. Has anyone heard of The Lean Startup before?
Oh, nice.
Has anyone read The Lean Startup? Okay, that's great. I can highly recommend you to read that book. If you ever think about starting a company, I'd highly recommend you to read that book. And so The Lean Startup talks about really those three things. It's like learn, build, measure. And then you do that over and over and over again. So instead of us saying like, hey, we want to help refugees, let's go and do something, we actually sat down and we made a bunch of hypotheses. So that's really what you do when you start and build a company, right? Instead of thinking that your idea is going to be the right thing, you actually instead take a step back and say like, maybe actually what I think is right isn't actually right. So let me go and test it, let me go and validate it. So we had this document, we would write down all these hypotheses. We would write down, we think refugees need help finding houses. We think refugees want to find a job. We think refugees don't want to find a job. Right? So we would write down all these hypotheses and assumptions that we thought could or may not be true. And that was really helpful because it kind of stopped us from, sometimes we have an idea and we just want to go run and do something, but actually stepping back and really thinking, okay, is this actually something the world needs right now, or am I just making an assumption that could be wrong? And so we went off and we did a bunch of discussions and interviews with refugees, with organizations, and we learned a few things that some of our assumptions were wrong. So Steffi was telling us earlier that we were trying to start a house to provide refugees shelter. And so we had an assumption, refugees need a house for shelter. But that assumption at a time when we had it was wrong, right? Shelters already existed, Caritas was doing a great job, the Rotes Kreuz was doing a great job, right? So there were all these organizations, so actually us doing another shelter would not have been right. So we invalidated that assumption, and instead of starting a house and learning no one wants to actually stay there right now, we didn't even start it in the first place, just by having a couple, less than 5 interviews with people. And so we moved on through our assumptions, and the big thing we always came back to was finding work, finding a job, right? And we learned that the further we would dig into that topic, the more issues we would uncover, right? Refugees don't know what is a Lebenslauf, what is a Bewerbungsschreiben, what is assessment center, right? Things that are super, super common for us, right? The idea of punctuality is a big challenge for refugees, right? Like in Austria, if you're 5 minutes late, you're late, right? You're really late. Whereas, in the US, if you're 15 minutes late, that's still sort of okay, right? 10 minutes. Or if you ever lived in South America, right? What I've learned is that if you're 20, 25 minutes late, you're still not really late, right? So those are simple ideas that actually blow our minds in terms of what cultural differences, what that term cultural difference actually means, right? And we found that really fascinating, and taking our egos out of it and being like, hey, there's probably a lot of biases that we have, a lot of things that we don't know. That can be really, really helpful. So this is what we did. We went through this process. We had our assumptions. We had these discussions. We went back to our assumptions. We had some more discussions. We went back to our assumptions. And we said, okay, the final assumption that we couldn't invalidate anymore was refugees need to find jobs. Refugees struggle to find jobs, right? That remained true, right, in our heads, but then later on, through validating that, it stayed on and it kept on being true. And so that's how we really came up to the topic of how can we help them find employment. That's how the idea, we want to start the first career fair for refugees in Austria was born.
Yeah, what's really interesting as well is here, we, like Leo said, we went out. It's really important if you start something, because a lot of times, as Leo mentioned, you have assumptions and you're like, okay, let's start something because I know it's true. This is what I see. This is the picture I have. It's really important, and I guess you've heard a lot of time from entrepreneurs. You have to go out and talk to the target group. You have to talk to your customer. You have to talk to the person who wants your product. But in this case, our target group were refugees, so we had to go out, talk to refugees, but also to people who are surrounded with them, who have worked with them, who understand them. And the 2 assumptions we also had was employment and education, but we always came back to employment. We were like, a person who comes into a new country is traumatized, but on the other hand has a cultural shock, will take time. But on the other hand, if you give a person employment, this person doesn't rely on the state, is self-independent, the person feels needed, but on the other hand has also an influence and is an add-on to Austria. Like we have so many people. If you look, for example, at the Syrian refugees, 30% of them are academics. So we have engineers, we have doctors, we have a lot of knowledge actually coming in, and they're not allowed to use it. So what happens right now is we have around, the numbers from March 2016 are 22,670 recognized refugees and people granted subsidiary protection. They're looking for jobs. So this is actually not a small number, and for them it's really hard to enter the job market. And their assumptions are that 2016, up to 50,000 people are trying to enter the job market from this target group. So we were like, okay, what can we do at this point? We found out that employment is such an important point for integration. This is an important point to integrate them in society, but also give them the feeling they're human again, that they are needed. And what happened then was we thought, okay, let's just start a company. So our first intuition, we both have an entrepreneurial background. We're like, okay, let's start a company, let's employ all these people. That was our first. We had like this, not naive, but we were like, let's employ the people. What was our first idea?
I think we wanted to we're going to start a factory. We were thinking about something that's very even labor intensive. So we were thinking to start an almond factory that produces almond milk. That we thought like doesn't exist in Austria. And we think there's a market for that. And we thought we could employ a lot of refugees that would be interested in working there. But
we were thinking of calling it actually. What was the name of it? We had a funky name for it.
I think you had one.
We had. I'm gonna tell you in a second. I can't think of it. But as you see, our first intention was let's just employ all of them. They're as a quality workforce. This is totally logic. Let's just take them and found our own company. Yeah, we had an issue. We had a major pain point. We didn't know where to find the right people. IMS couldn't give us the numbers. If you have a positive status, if you're granted asylum, you have to look for your own flat. That's why you're not in this shelters. So they're spread all over. And we're like, okay, how can we find this quality workforce? And does it mean if you were a good engineer in Syria, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, that you're the same in Austria? We didn't know, and nobody could tell us. And so we sat there and we're like, okay, what can we do? And we had actually, in this process, it took us about, how long did it take us? 1.5 weeks? We went through this process. And then what happened was, we said, okay, let's start with with the first step. Oops. Okay. What if other people, other companies have the same pain point? They don't know where they can get quality workforce. They don't know how. There are a lot of prejudice there. There's a lot of assumptions there. How can we actually tackle this pain point? Can we tackle it if we start our own company? And there are a lot of other companies. So what we came up with was, we said, okay, let's organize the first job fair for recognized refugees and people granted subsidiary protection in Austria. But why? Leo, can you answer this question? Why did we come up with the fair?
Yeah, I think we started having these discussions with other companies. So we talked with started. One of the first talks we had was with a company called Rewe. They own Billa and Merkur and a bunch of other big ones. And we just found that sort of every company we talked to, they all said like, yeah, we want to help refugees, but on the other hand they said like, but we don't know how, right? So there's a lot of sort of, like Steffi talked about this, there's sort of like a lot of unknowns, right? Legally, can I employ them, can I not? And a lot of other sort of barriers in our heads. The biggest barrier we often found is that we all know sort of refugees from like when they arrive at like Westbahnhof in Wien, at the how they sort of, they are like, having had a really tough few weeks, they're like, in rags, they're not wearing nice clothes, and making that switch from that picture in our heads that we've seen on TV so many times to like the picture of like, oh, they work now in the companies. That's, we almost had to actually admit that to ourselves, that that's a bit of a jump we had to make in our conscience to now picture those people working side by side with us in the companies that we also want to have jobs in. Maybe everyone here wants to work in to some extent. And so that's really how we felt like, okay, what if we bring together, this is how our mission developed, right? What if we bring together people that are motivated refugees that want to find work in Austria with companies that are motivated and interested in helping out, in providing jobs for them. And kind of like the mission of bringing those two together on one platform, face-to-face. We thought that face-to-face was really key. We thought about an online platform first, sort of everything is online first these days, but we actually felt that online first might not be the right approach here. At first, we might want to actually do that in person at an event, and we started to sort of rent out the museum's quarter, and yeah, that's sort of how it came together. We just tried to factor in all the assumptions that we had, and try to really always take a step back and invalidate them, and try to be as honest as possible with ourselves whether what we're actually building is going to be the right thing.
Yeah, and so the aim right now is to we're going to have 2,500 refugees in the museums quarter, in the Halle EEG and the Hofstallungen. And what else is going to happen? We're going to have 50 companies and 20 organizations. So we're going to have one big, like the Hofstallungen, where refugees are going to go through and they're going to get consultants, going to get advice on education, on living, on a lot of refugees right now, they're signing things they actually don't know what's in the contract. They're signing working contracts and they don't know what they're signing. So we're having a lot of challenges from this side, which we're trying to tackle with the 20 organizations joining us as a consultancy aspect, and then we're going to have 50 companies, and what we're going to do there is, I actually have a picture of, so this is the museum's quarter for the ones who don't know it, and on the right-hand side what's going to happen here is, we're going to get to 2,000, we're working together with the IMS Vienna, and it's really interesting if you start projects like that. In the beginning, the IMS Vienna was like, what are you doing? You want to do a job fair? In 2 months, this doesn't work. You need a year. And the both of us were like, no, 2 months, and we couldn't do that, and they're like, this is not going to work. And so we pitched it to them, and in the end, they were on our side. They were like, okay, we're going to believe you, you're going to make it. And in the meantime, we have IMS Vienna on our side, and what they're doing, they're sending out the invitations to 3,000 refugees, to the 2,500. We're going to invite them, and they're going to come. They have the possibility then to communicate directly with the companies, but what we're also going to do is we're scheduling interviews, because with everything, especially if you work in this field, it's really important to look on the sustainable side. So we said, how can we make this sustainable? If the refugees come and just walk through and leave, is this sustainable? What sustainable factor can we implement in the idea we had? So what we did was we said, okay, they have to sign up, we're going to schedule interviews with them. And so what we're going to do is they come there and they have interviews with the companies, because we're really trying to have interactions there on a one-to-one base. So it's not just running through. And as a next step, we're going to give the data of the 2,500 refugees to Refugee Works. Who has heard of Refugee Works? They're an online platform. They're matching refugees with companies. So we said, okay, let's use this data, and to make it sustainable, we're giving it to Refugee Works. What else is to say? Okay, yeah, partners. How do we get to the partners?
Yeah, this is super interesting. These are all the companies that we already have exhibiting, so we're really excited about that. We're looking for a bunch more. It's really fun to, for me personally, to learn about sales in Austria. I don't know if anyone has had a sales job yet in Austria, has done some sales for some companies. Who of you wants to go into sales and do sales in the future? Not very many people are excited about sales, okay. Sales is actually a lot of fun, especially in Austria. You learn a lot. So it's fascinating to sort of go to these companies, and what you'll learn is, companies usually plan out their budgets years or a year at least in advance. So coming in and saying like, hey, how about you exhibit at our fair and you give us some money, like 5,000 euros or 10,000 euros to get a big partnership package from us. That was kind of difficult. So it's really fascinating to learn about, the emotional drive that we believe that we had, and that we wanted also to initiate from our partners and say, like, look, this is sort of a unique situation that we are in Austria, that we find ourselves in. Refugees are here right now. They don't really care about your budget or your budget setting strategy, but they really care about finding jobs right now. And so that was one of the most interesting lessons for me, is that when you go out and you work with companies, the level of urgency that you can create to help them, work with you and partner with you right now, even though it doesn't fit in their budget structure, is always possible, right? Usually there's no way that someone can say like, oh, it doesn't work for us, if, someone in the company really believes in that project. So I was really surprised and really fascinated by the fact that we could get all these partners within a month or two, and have them contribute a significant amount of money, that would happen outside their budget planning session. So that was sort of one of the biggest learnings from us there.
Yeah, I think another, like if you're planning to start a project, it's also for us what was interesting to see is, and I think that's when you do sales, I don't know, the salespeople, if they're gonna go d'accord with me in that point, you have to find one person in the company who loves your project. We tried actually to come in from different levels. So although we got an intro to the CEO, let's say of T-Mobile, they're one of our partners, we still tried to get in from different levels that they in the company heard, okay, there's something going on, we should be part of it. So we tried to really get in from different levels, but what was most important, to find one person you meet in person actually in the end who really loves the project, because this person is going to run for you. This person is going to really stand up for you in front of all the other people. It's really important to have someone in the company, not only from the outside, who really believes in the project, who really believes in what you do. And that's how we actually entered a lot of companies. We found one person who believed we can realize that in this short time frame. So what else? Yeah, I think we said that already, like what's going to happen at the fair? Yeah,
at the fair we'd love to talk a little bit about how you all can get involved if you're interested in sort of supporting that sort of project. But we really wanted to make it a little bit more unique than just a usual career fair. You might all know sort of career calling or the big career fairs that you're all aware of from VU and so on. But what we really wanted to do is like next to traditional stands, we also wanted to offer sort of the advice. We talked about the cultural differences that a lot of refugees aren't aware of how things work in Austria. So we kind of doing workshops, and we're providing a lot of refugees with the opportunity to attend those workshops right on the day of the fair. So I'm really excited for that. We'll have talks, we'll have refugees be up on stage, and especially refugees that already have found a job in Austria, and they can give back to the community and share what they've gone through and how they've done that and provide that information to other refugees. We're really excited to have matching right there, so hopefully actual jobs are being given to some of the refugees from our partners. And yeah, finally we're looking forward to having sort of advice. Steffi already talked about that, sort of everything from legal advice to how do you find a place to live and so on and so forth. We're looking forward to providing all that.
And talking about impactful entrepreneurship, it was really interesting in the process of involving the project. We noticed on how many levels we can actually have impact, because we're going to talk about our press conference in a second, but what happened is that a lot of organizations came to us and said, how can we get involved? And what we figured out is a lot of organizations who are already active in the refugee field, they don't talk to each other. There are about 7 different organizations who are trying to do a matching platform right now for refugees and companies, because they don't do research on the one hand and they don't talk to each other. So people who have ideas, and on the other hand who are already in the sector of refugees and connected with the workforce, what we're going to do at the fair as well is get them on a table. Because that's what we noticed, how can we have a bigger impact is to get all these organizations on one table. And it's interesting when you go into a project, sometimes you notice different pain points on the way. And if you want to do impactful entrepreneurship, you really have to on the way think, okay, how can we actually solve this issue as well? But nothing would have worked without a team. So what happens here is like Leo and me started, we came back, as we told you, like this week of intense research. I had to go back to New York for a few weeks, and Leo was actually in Austria working from here. And what we did then was we were looking for people, and it's so interesting. Like, who works in teams? Who has? Okay. Because what we noticed as well is this project. It's not possible without a team. Like we were in the beginning, we were tackling it on our own. It's possible, but what we have now a really colorful team. So we have a designer, a girl from Syria. Her background is from Syria. She's an architecture student. He's a photographer and architect as well. Michi Ströck actually joined us in the team. He has his own startup, Beaver, and Jan, and they came up and said, okay, we're going to join forces. And it was so interesting how in a short time frame, we grew up to 10 people. So this is an old picture. In the meantime, we're actually 10 people working on this project. And we just started actually 2 months ago. So the team is growing. We're still looking for people who are interested in sales, who want to join us. We're still looking for people who want to support us. So it's really interesting how step by step, the team is growing, the project is growing. That's a beautiful thing also about if you have a really impactful project or mission, how you attract people in a really, really beautiful way. They come up and they're like, I want to be part of it. And we're like, oh, we actually don't pay, we're like volunteering. So behind this project right now, we don't pay, like we don't get paid for it. And it was really interesting how people are joining us right now. And what happened here, Leo? Yeah, with the team, what did the team, what was possible with the team?
It was really exciting to kind of show in a short period of time, we were able to put on a press conference and invite everybody from the Presse, the Standard. We managed to have the ORF with the Zeit und Bild to do a segment about us. And yeah, it was really fascinating kind of like to prove to ourselves and to everybody really that, you know, if you find something that resonates with people, you can relatively quickly get things off the ground and try and you know, share that with the world. And there's probably always going to be a lot of interest, you know, if you find something that where you're really solving a pain point. And by
so someone's calling Leo. So what happens with the press conferences, because people were coming up and saying, you can't have a press conference 2 months before. Press conferences in Austria only work on the day of the event. No journalist will show up. And Leo and me looked at each other and we're like, we're gonna prove you wrong. And so what happened then was, as Leo said, we started just Googling invitation press conference. So we took something we found on the internet, what they called invitation press conference, and we're like, okay, cool, sounds interesting, let's try it. So we started really bombarding from all different levels, journalists, and seeing who has connections to different journalists. And what happened then was, IMS Vienna boss came up to us, like the Pressesprecher, and he said, I'm officially impressed with you guys. How did you manage to get all of these journalists there? And how did you manage the journalists to write the right thing? Because having a press conference and then what comes out of it are all two different things. So what happened then was we were really surprised that in these articles, they wrote the things like we really wanted to communicate, and it was beautiful. And so we could prove, on the one hand, that it's possible in 2 weeks to organize a press conference, although it's 2 months before, because we're talking about impact. We're talking about a really relevant topic, but you still have to hustle. Although it's maybe only a press conference, but what helped us here is, through this press conference and through being on the prime time on ORF, what happened? Like, the last week was crazy. Do you want to say something about that?
Yeah, it was amazing, like how much, you know, if you are in the media, we get like, I think Steffi told me about a phone call an hour from new companies that want to sign up and be part of it. We already had about 1,000 refugees, you know, register for the career fair. Yeah, it was really just, you know, a good case study, hopefully for you guys, as you go out and start your own projects, you know, what kind of media attention can help you with. And, you know, I'm always a big fan of sort of, I call that like a buffer. We used to use that term, the be everywhere effect. Sort of like being in one press outlet at one point in time does not help you that much, whereas if you are in all the press outlets at the same time, you get sort of this 1 + 1 = 3 effect, sort of this exponential impact from your outreach. So we're really trying to gun for that and say like, okay, how can we you know, get everyone in one room and write about us all at the same time, so that, you know, people sort of, you know, maybe from just a distance hear about us, but then they hear about us so many times that at some point they go, oh, let me check out what these guys are all about. But it's a technique I can highly recommend, you know, for your own projects, to really try and put something out for the media that kind of resonates and reaches multiple outlets at the same time.
Yeah, it's really interesting regarding the press. Like, if you're doing a project which is connected with impact on all different levels, it was really interesting also to see people were telling us again, here in Austria, you get one press partner and you make a big story out of it. And how Leo has mentioned already, it's more important for us, it was more important right now to put the topic on the table and let everybody know that employment and refugees is important. Otherwise, we're going to have a big, big, big problem in a few years. Because we're going to have a separate society they're going to develop in a different way if we're not going to integrate them. And employment is one of the most important ways of integrating people from different cultures, different backgrounds, and so on. So that was a really, really important message we wanted to shoot out, besides telling the world outside, okay, we're doing this refugee fair, this is really important, join us as a partner or visit. So yeah, that's the message the media got. And although, because people are always gossiping about the Heute actually got the right message as well. Yesterday the headline was, ein positives Zeichen der Integration im Museumsquartier. I was like, wow, nothing about drugs, war, sex. Oh, they're talking about integration in a really like productive way. So for us it was a proof. You can diss about the Heute as much as you want, but if we're talking about impact, it's really interesting how people suddenly stick together if you hustle hard enough. Yeah, is there?
Yeah, the final thing we probably want to say is, if you're interested, if you want to do sort of a practicum and you haven't done one yet, we'd love for you to, come talk to us. You can email us leo@chancenreich.org or steffi@chancenreich.org. And if you're interested, if you want to help with sort of community management, marketing, sales, if you're looking sort of for any sort of experience right now, we hope that will be a unique opportunity for you all. And we'd love to sort of coach you and guide you and share some of the experiences we've learned. And we're pretty sure you'll bring something unique to the table as well that we'll be able to learn from.
So we're not finished. This was a beautiful wrap-up speech. We're going to actually sit down right now because what we gave you now is an insight. So it's true, we're still looking for people on the one, but what's really important right now is for us to share the story. Actually, this is the only talk we're giving before the fair because we're getting a lot of attention right now. They're like, okay, can you talk there? Can you talk there? We're like, no, we're focusing. We have to get this fair on the ground and then we can talk about it. But the Avenue guys were really smart. They asked us in the really, really beginning, so we promised them, so that's why we're here. But what's really important right now is for us to take a step further, because now you know how we started the project, how we said, okay, we're gonna come back to Austria, the both of us, and start something which we think has an impact. But now we're going to put the chairs in the middle. What we're going to do right now is to welcome someone on stage who has actually a lot more experience when it comes down to impactful entrepreneurship. It's not only a dear friend, but also a really great guy who started the Impact Hub several years ago. Has anyone heard about the Impact Hub? Matthias, this is a good... For the ones who don't know it, you're going to know something about it more in a second, because we're going to have Matthias and Leo, so I'm going to go in the mode I'm used to on the one hand as well to moderate, so we're going to ask each other questions, because what really is interesting is why did Leo, who has actually $1 million company back, says, okay, why did he come to Austria to focus on a project like that, and what are the projects, and what is Matthias's insight in impactful entrepreneurship? So we're going to have a look at that in a second. And what's going to happen in addition, if you have questions, just raise your hand and I'm going to implement your question in this, because this is going to be something like we call it a fireside chat. Really, it's not, imagine there's like the sparkling fire in the back. So I have two beautiful guests here, and we're going to have a chat, but you are allowed to ask questions as well. So I'm going to implement your questions in between. Clear? Clear. Okay. So what I would like to start off with, Matthias, give us please a quick insight in, the mic is working, what is the Impact Hub? And the name Impact is already in the Impact, like in the name itself is. So what is impact in your opinion? Like we're talking about impactful entrepreneurship.
Well, good morning, everybody. First of all, can we hear a round of applause for Steffi and Leo for the presentation? I think it was really awesome. Sorry for taking over. Hi, my name is Matthias. I'm one of the founders of the Impact Hub. And so maybe like a bit of a background. How did the whole thing start, maybe? Like,
yeah, that would be interesting.
Can I
like,
say a sentence?
Yes, sure.
I also studied at the VU. Not that this beautiful VU, at the other less beautiful VU with the seminar rooms without windows. Who has been there? You don't know what I'm talking about. Oh, some of you know. Okay, awesome. My people. And I did I think I figured out pretty early that I'm a bit different, maybe. I think it's a good thing. So for example, I did the SEMS program. Who of you does SEMS? Anybody? All right, there's somebody.
There's some sense.
Two, all right. And so I think when you are at the VU and in different specializations or at SEMS, you get to go to these company presentations, right? So today we listen to McKinsey, and tomorrow we listen to Procter & Gamble, and then we listen to L'Oreal, and I was always listening to those, and I somehow was getting a bit annoyed. And so, for example, with SEMS, there was this one company presentation where we listened to Shell. And I'm like, okay, now we listen to Shell. And I was like, okay, we're gonna bring out this recruitment wizard and they're gonna make me want to work for Shell. So I was like, stay strong, Matthias. You don't wanna work for Shell. And actually it wasn't necessary because it was, instead of recruiting wizards, it was 2 HR ladies that I felt were hungover and were not really motivated. So they came in and they started with a quiz. And they were asking, so what do you think is the number 2 product that Shell sells after gas? And I'm like, I don't know, wipers? And they were like, it's tobacco. I'm like, really? You're trying to recruit us and you're going like, okay, we're selling gas and tobacco. Come work for Shell. I'm like, okay, whatever. And then, as the next exercise, there were, okay, now we ask you to do a group work. Please design a CSR campaign and paint a poster that shows how Shell is like a really sustainable company. And I'm like, all right, you lost us. Let's get out of here. This is enough. But then I looked around and everybody started drawing like little posters with clams. And then the globe was the pearl inside the shell. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And so I thought that maybe I was a little bit different. But then I actually also am really selfish, right? I'm really selfish, so when it comes to impact for me, this is not because I'm an altruist or because I want to just float around and make the world a better place, but at the end of the day, because I'm really selfish. And I look at it, so we have this one life, and it's like a computer game where you have, when you lose, right? So you cannot insert a coin and you cannot just go again. So it's like, okay, I want to make this fun, right? So first of all, let's make this fun. Let's experience everything that there is to experience. And my worst nightmare that I wanted to avoid is that I'm 60 years old, or that I'm 80 years old, and I look back and I'm like, what the fuck have you done with your life? You worked for Shell. No, I don't know why I'm shitting on Shell. I'm sorry.
Maybe is someone here from Shell? No, okay, that's okay.
No, whatever. So I really wanted to avoid this midlife crisis, right? Because I don't think I look well in a red convertible with a toupee and asking myself, my life is meaningless, what do I do? No. So I wanted to have fun and I wanted to do something that I see some sense in. And so I asked myself as well, or somebody actually asked me when I was 22 years old, and that question stuck with me. Imagine you're 80 years old and your grandson or your granddaughter sits in your lap and your granddaughter asks you, so, what have you done with your life? So we have all this shit, we have the climate change and inequality and everything. So what have you done? And I'm like, fuck, okay, I don't know how, I want to know how to answer this question, right? So I was like, okay, let's try to find something. Where do you go? So I didn't really want to go into business as usual. I didn't really want to go into an NGO. I didn't really go into politics or work in the United Nations with like all this bureaucracy or for the World Bank or whatever. And so I was completely lost. And I saw all these people who had this dream of saying, okay, I have this idea already. I want to bring this idea into the world. I want to change the world. But first, I need to get experience, and I need to get a job, and I need to get security. And they all got this, but they also got a wife and a baby and a mortgage and a lifestyle. And so they never went to actually realize this idea. Because I thought, like, if you are 40 years old and you have a family and you have a lifestyle and you have a mortgage, it's like so difficult to let that go. And I was like, I don't have the balls to do that. So I'm just gonna do it now when I'm like 22 years old. What can you really lose, right? So, and if it doesn't work out, you can always go back. So luckily I met a lot of people who had the same thought, right? So, okay, so what do we do? And I think we approached it very similar to what Steffi and Leo were talking about. And it's like, okay, let's just start. let's just run small experiments. Let's just run small prototypes. And so we started doing workshops and seminars and conferences, and we figured out this is what we're good at, this is what we're not so good at, this is what is fun, this is not so much fun, this is where we can actually earn a living, here we can't. And so step by step we narrowed down to something that we felt really passionate about. So we didn't start with something that I'm like, okay, I'm deeply passionate about this, but we found it along the way. So I was like, let's not wait for the great inspiration and the final idea that will strike us, but let's actually get started and it's gonna come eventually. And so it did come. So it was really like the similar experience. Like we had this pain point. So we had these thoughts, we had these questions, and along the way we actually found some ideas that we want to realize, but where do you go and actually to make these ideas happen? Right? So if you have an idea, where do you go? Right? So we started from our living rooms. And I remember working on these ideas, and then it was this one afternoon, it was 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I sat there with my pajamas, and I'm like, okay, I need to get out of here. I need to have people around me, otherwise I'm going crazy. And we realized there was no such place. So we decided, okay, let's build this place. Let's build a place where you go if you want to realize your idea, and there you can actually meet awesome people like Steffi and Leo, and many other people that I see in the room here, and actually work together to actually realize these ideas. And so it was like 7 years ago when we started to build the hub, and by now I don't know if you've been there, you're really welcome to join. It's in the 7th district next to Mahilferstraße. It's 1,200 square meters of space where you can work on your idea. It's 500 people that support you here in Vienna. It's 13,000 people globally, because it's a global network as well. And you meet people, and I think this is the most important thing, because that's the first thing that I feel you realize when you start an idea, is who do you know, who can help you, who you can learn from, who can actually give you access to a network or to advice. And I feel this is what the Impact Hub does. And so, sorry for taking a little bit longer.
No, I think it's really like you got a lot of points. What happened to us was Leo and me, we wrote this hypothesis, and we had like these ideas in actually his living room. And then we figured out, we're like, okay, we need to go outside. We need to go somewhere. Where can we go? And we ended up in the Impact Hub. And that's also the reason why we took Matthias along here, because the Impact Hub helped us a lot to meet people, to go out, to exchange. And I think it's really important, if you talk about impactful entrepreneurship, it's really important to go out, to exchange, to take this step outside and interact with other people. Okay, so that's your story. I think actually I would like to take a step back also and ask Leo about his story, because Leo comes from a really, really big town with a beautiful house in this town. It's Melk. So how did you end up from Melk in the US, like Buffer? Because he's going to be in the Buffer role for a second, because it's really interesting to hear his story, how Buffer actually started.
Sure, yeah, I'm from a tiny town in Austria. It's called Melk. It's about 5,000 people live there. They have a big yellow house that a lot of people know. Yeah, that was where I grew up, on the countryside. Sort of saw myself a bit as like a farm boy, didn't know too much. Vienna was a big city for me, so I would go there once a month and be overwhelmed and want to go home again and play soccer in my backyard. And that was, sort of a good life for me growing up. But then when I started going to high school in Vienna, I had some amazing colleagues around me that inspired me and said, like, look, you can actually go outside of this country. And I know this sounds kind of silly, but in my mind, it was really difficult to imagine even like living outside of Austria, or like even being in Vienna was a big step for me. And so some of my colleagues ended up studying outside of Austria, and a lot of them actually went to England. So I wanted to go to England as well and study there. And I tried to go to Oxford and tried to go to London, LSE and UCL, and didn't get into any of those universities. So I ended up going to the University of Warwick, which is sort of another great university, but they were sort of the only ones that gave me an offer. And I went there and I studied for about a year. And after a year, I said, I actually really want to do something. I want to, I'm at this stage of my life, I felt like, I'm constantly learning. I'm sort of consuming information, but I'm not putting anything out there. I go to like elementary school, I go to middle school, I go to high school. It's like learning. But what am I producing? And I feel like, well, these sort of 12 years are enough. And so I stopped going to university, and I started this company with a friend of mine called Buffer. And after about a year and a half of studying, I dropped out of university, and so I'm a dropout. I don't have a degree. Most of you will probably be more academically proficient than I ever will be. And so I went to the United States, went to San Francisco, and started Buffer there. And it's really tough. It was really hard ground at first. I was 19, 20 years old when I arrived, and it was fascinating. It was a life-changing experience. I remember, especially we arrived there, and I was very naive. I thought, like, Silicon Valley, it's the place you go, and they just shower you with cash, right? They just give you like millions of dollars, and you're like, if you're young, the younger the better, because everyone knows the Mark Zuckerberg story. And so it was really tough to go there and realize that's totally not how it works, right? People would look at us and be like, who do you think you are, right? Why would I give you even $1 of my money? And so gradually, like we really burned through all of our cash. We learned that, you know, in Austria you pay maybe 500 euros a month for a flat. In San Francisco you pay $3,000 a month to have an apartment. And we were like, wow. So I burned through all my personal savings within like 3 weeks that we thought would last us 3 months. And had about a week of cash left in our bank accounts before we would sort of be out on the street or like call our parents desperately to wire us some money. And it was in that week that we said, okay, let's try one more week. Let's try to speak to some investors. Let's see if we can get some funding. And it was in that week that one of the investors called us back and said, hey, you know, are you still looking for funding? And we were like, yeah, it would still be great. We just tried to conceal our excitement for the fact that, you know, this is sort of saving our lives or sort of saving the company at this stage. And so this investor called us back. I remember it's like it was yesterday. It was like a Saturday afternoon, and they said like, oh, how about I give you $120,000? And we were like, this was like incredible. We didn't even have a bank account. We didn't even have like formally registered the company. So the investor was like, so where do I wire the money? And we were like, hang on a second, we got to open a bank account first. And then we were sort of on our way to like be on that trajectory. And I was sort of like riding on that, you know, startup roller coaster for the last 5 years, up and down, of like hiring people and getting hacked and raising more money and losing some people and having to fire people and hiring some great people. So it's like this, you know, if you go to my doctor, you see a chart of like my heart rate is like crazy, up and down every day. But it's my story, and yeah, I'm excited to now, you know, after spending 5 years in the US, being in Austria and then contributing here a little bit again, and having, you know, I believe Austria to some extent is the center of one of the biggest humanitarian crises there is right now with refugees, and I think it's a huge opportunity as well. So I'm excited to shift gears a little bit and contribute in the same way that I was able to build that company way back.
What was your main, like, what was the click? The point where you said, okay, you're going to come back to Austria, because people are going to say, okay, you have 100, like people come up to me and they're like, what? You're doing this project with Leo? This is not possible. He has like 100 people working for him. Like, how does this work? So quickly, I think, because I get this question a lot, like, why did you, like, what was your motivation to come back and how do you tackle that?
I think the point for me where it clicked really was this very first picture that you saw up on the screen, where you saw all the kids that we were doing, like, you know, volunteering at a refugee house, and it was just amazing for me to get this level of connection that I felt like, wow, that's incredible. Like these kids that I don't know, that I've never seen before, they have so much affection and love for me, even though they have, you know, been through so much hard things the last few weeks. And I was like, wow, who are these people, right, that are able to do that and are able to extend that love to me in a time where we'd expect them to be at their lowest and expect them to be at their, you know, worst. And so that was really, for me, the inspiration. And I love when Matthias said, like, he's being selfish, because I see myself as being selfish as well. I don't actually think I'm doing this out of wanting to help refugees. I'm actually doing that out of wanting to spend more time with those people, because I'm so inspired by them. You know, they look me in the eye and it's like, okay, we are here now. We crossed the freaking ocean in this tiny dinghy, and now we want to work here. And I'm like, hang on a second, my life was never this hard, and I don't know what I would do if my life had turned out that way, I would have that motivation. So it was really about the inspiration and the connection that I felt that day when I was working with those people.
Yeah. Okay, I want to take, because like the topic they gave us is like impactful entrepreneurship. So what I love right now is we have two people here coming from actually two different fields in a way, but same field, but two different places, different approaches maybe to impact, because if we talk about impact, I think there are like a lot of different angles to look at it. I would like to ask Matthias now, what was, because you're part of this big network, what was the most inspiring, like impactful story, impactful entrepreneur you met on the journey? Because you are surrounded with a lot of people. Could you tell us like who inspired you most on this journey?
It's like you ask, who's your favorite child, right? You can't answer this question. It's that one. To be honest, I would actually reframe this. The way that I would frame it is not a single entrepreneur, it's not a single enterprise or a single business. What I'm absolutely amazed by is this, I really want to call it a global movement of amazing individuals who work together, who collaborate in order to actually drive impact and actually have an impact. So this is what I find so amazing. That's what gives me, quite frankly, also some hope, because I think it's those people and in the diverse fields that come with a very collaborative, non-competitive approach and say, hey, actually we are here to do something and get shit done. And sort of to have this on a broad scale, this is what I find so amazing. So imagine the bubble that I live in, right? So when I go into the hub, I'm surrounded by hundreds of people who actually say, okay, I see the challenges and I want to actually address them and I want to fix them. So I'm thinking in solutions. And actually, I want to do it together with everybody else here. And so that reality for me, I feel so privileged that I have access to this, because it's obviously maybe not the reality for everybody to be surrounded by amazing individuals who actually think so positively about the world and about the reality. So I think it's that global movement what inspires me, Julie.
Okay, because we are running, I think, Daniel, we have 5 more minutes. Yes. Okay, are there questions at the moment from your side? Because I have some more questions, but I would take some questions now from your side. Do you have questions to the two of us, but you can also ask if you want the question towards me right now? It can be on impactful entrepreneurship, it can be on Chanceling, it can be on the Impact Hub. Otherwise, I'm going to continue, but I still want to make use of the 5 minutes if you have a question. Any questions? Okay, there's a question in the back. Can somebody... Okay, I'm going to actually... Speak up, yeah? You mean like the chance, talking about Impact Hub or Chancenreich or impactful entrepreneurship? Okay, can you rephrase it then? I didn't understand you acoustically.
Hi, my name is George. Yeah, this is loud. So where do you need the help the most right now for organizing the fair and everything else? You mentioned that you're also looking for volunteers, so I think it would be a good idea to address that.
I think because like the topic of the talk is impactful entrepreneurship, so the most like... The first thing I would like from everyone in this room, and I would like from people of Austria, think differently about this topic. Talk with people about the topic, that we have a lot of quality workforce here. Talk differently, talk with people about the topic and look at it from different angles. That's number one, from talking about the topic itself. Secondly, oh yeah, we need people. We started this project not long ago, so Leo, do you want to sum that up?
Yeah, I think that's an awesome question. I think we're looking for 2 key roles right now. The first one is sort of if you're interested in logistics, right? That's sort of helping organize. On the day of the event, we'll have like 100 to 200 volunteers. So we need someone that helps us manage those volunteers, right? So someone that can help us, on the logistics side, organizing the career stands, organizing, a lot of the flyers, putting everything up, like someone who loves to get, a lot of tasks done in a short, like a project, who has a project management mindset, right? So like on the logistics side. And the second person we really need help with, if you're interested, is on the partner management side. We're still looking for a lot more companies to help us. So if you're interested in learning sales, in talking to executives of other companies, you would be working directly with me. I hope that I would help you, learn a few interesting things. How do you close a deal? How do you close a sale? How do you convince someone? How do you give an inspiring talk? How do you do follow-up emails? How do you do a lot of these different things that we've learned that I've learned over the last few years. So, if you that will be more of a partner manager position. The other one is more like a logistics manager position. So, those are the two key roles we're looking for. And if you add me on Facebook or add Steffi on Facebook, email me leo@buffer.com or leo@chancenreich.com. .org. Sorry, not .com.
Yeah.
And I'd love to chat and find some time how we can work together.
Okay, so now. So if you want to join us. But on the other hand, start something yourself. You've heard it's 1% is the idea and 99% is the execution. So I know a lot of you have ideas that you want to start something, but it's about really doing something. And that's what we really like, why Leo and me really talk a lot about it, because we really want to motivate people to do something, because there's always an opportunity in crisis. And so either join us or start something yourself. We have time for one. Thanks for the question, by the way. Is there any more, another question in the crowd? Okay, there's one question.
Say again when it's happening.
Oh, it's on the 29th of June. 29th of June. So if you want to come, if you want to join as a volunteer, please, or just check it out on the 29th of June. Any other question? Because otherwise I'm going to do the last round, because Daniel is already coming on stage. Oh, I'm normally in this role, and it's so, I can feel Daniel. Any more questions from the crowd? Otherwise I'm going to do a last round on the stage. How many minutes are left? 2 minutes? Okay, good. One last advice. If there's someone in the crowd who wants to start something, who's really interested in saying, okay, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to have an impact, I'm really interested in impactful entrepreneurship, what is like the advice you would give this person right now?
It's an interesting question. I think, I'm not sure if I disagree a little bit, but I actually don't think everyone is an entrepreneur. I don't think everyone in this room is an entrepreneur, and I don't think that's bad. So I think, if you have an urge to start something, you should go and do that. If you don't, then you don't necessarily have to do anything. But the most important thing that I believe in, if you do feel like you want to be like, starting something yourself, is the idea of, validating what you want to do. So any idea that you have, everyone has an idea in the shower. How can you go out of the building, read the lean startup, get out of the building, and ask your potential customers, hey, what do you think about this idea I just had? And you might learn that they don't think that's a problem they have at all. So learning about validation and validating a hypothesis, that would be my best advice.
So if you have an idea that you believe in, and if you're passionate about it, I think the first thing that I would do if I was you is to talk to everybody about it. So to your friends and to your family. Because they're going to keep you accountable, and they're going to ask if you're actually doing what you feel passionate about. Because the road is really bumpy, and it's very discouraging. So a lot of people that you ask for feedback about your idea, they're going to say it's not needed, it does already exist, and it's not going to be possible. So that can be discouraging. So when you have people around you that believe in you, and actually in you realizing that idea, that can be really supportive. So don't be secretive about it, talk to people, and they'll keep you accountable, which makes you keep yourself accountable.
Thank you for the advice from my side. Once again, 1% is the idea. I really believe in that, and it's a lot about execution. And I think if you sum up what the guys said, and if you've seen now how quickly you can start something, although people are telling you it's not possible, then I think there are a lot of more examples out there. Talk with people. Thanks for having us, and have a great day.
Thank you very much. Thanks a million. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you.